Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by LifeWave. Ready to elevate your wellness game? Meet X39 from LifeWave.com. This game-changing patch uses phototherapy to stimulate your skin, enhancing strength and stamina by channeling your body's innate energy. Simply apply it to harness infrared heat, naturally boosting your vitality. Want to learn more? Visit www.lifewave.com/VernD and step into a healthier, more active lifestyle today.
Welcome to Breaking the Silence After Midnight. What keeps you up at night? This is the podcast where sleepless thoughts find space to be heard. Now, just to take you back to season 1, we began by finding the courage to be heard, learning what it means to give voice to the thoughts, the fears, and stories that we once kept silent. And then looking back at season 2, we moved beyond the boundaries, exploring the limits we outgrow, the spaces we step into, and the possibilities we finally give ourselves permission to pursue. Now, the conversation continues after midnight, where the thoughts get louder, the truth gets clearer, and the stories are ready to be heard. So tonight, and I said tonight, we begin with the weight that many of us know too well, and that's stress and overwhelm, the responsibilities that we carry, the pressure we hide, and the thoughts that just refuse to rest when the world goes silent. So my guest, as you see here, considers herself to be what? A domestic engineer in every sense of the word. And she will share her challenges that keep her up at night within and outside of that role. So good evening, Krystina, and welcome.
Good evening.
A little bit about yourself and what makes you tick.
Oh, good evening. My name is Krystina, and yes, I am a domestic engineer and all that it comes around, and children wrangler with my 4 kids, including twins. But a little bit about me, I would have to say I've done a little bit of everything. I started off as a musician, as a classical cellist. I've gone through culinary arts and got my degree in culinary arts and restaurant management. And I've also done customer service where I was in luxury sales. So bringing that all together, it's brought me to what I needed and what fuels me being a domestic engineer and taking care of everything as far as my family, my kids, my home, my household.
Yeah, that I really love the fact that you refer to yourself as a domestic engineer, because a lot of people, when they think of what it is that you do, and what mothers do, they call them a stay-at-home mom. And that is the furthest from the truth for you, because you stay gone. And for the other mothers that are out there, there's no way that they just stay at home and eat bonbons on the couch. That's just not happening. So before we get into the heavier stuff, let's start with something that, I remember when my kids were little that I often found myself up late at night. But what's one of the funniest, most strange or unnecessary thing that you've ever found yourself doing when you probably should have been asleep?
Oh, just one would be impossible, but just last night, I have a tendency of when the kids start settling down, I like to get everything ready for the following day. So I went to my pantry where my Lazy Susan is, and I opened it up to find the cans were missing. So I have twins, and one of my twins has a tendency of sneaking into the pantry and either lining up the cans or hiding different dried goods throughout the household. So last night was kind of a pantry Easter egg hunt for me. So I had to go around and find the different cans scattered throughout the house, and I could just see her amusement.
She was probably looking for your reaction, and then she was thinking, I did it again.
She lives for those moments.
Wow, wow. But it's fun. It's fun. So now, when you think about your younger self, what kinds of things brought you joy before the responsibility began to take up space? Now, I know you talked about, your music and culinary arts, and are there things, that maybe you haven't mentioned or that you want to highlight as far as those are concerned? What brought you joy with your
I
young?
think a lot of what brought me joy was taking a step back. I remember when I first got my car and my driver's license, it was a little bit later. I was 19, but just taking a step back from everything and just going for a drive and listening to your favorite songs, your own playlist, and just the joy that it brought, knowing that it was something I picked out, something I could do. I could do at my own pace and enjoy. Just taking time out for myself, little things like that, it was amazing. And it's something I would always continue to do. And when I had my first child, I would take her and she would listen to her music and we go on road trips. And it's just something that just brought us together and something I could share with her at the time.
Well, that's awesome. And so when you think about those kinds of things that brought you joy, do you revisit that? Do you recreate those experiences for yourself despite all of your responsibilities?
Despite everything going on, I think taking that time, even if it's going to the grocery store, even if it's going to the park, I the kids know that the music's going to turn on and we're going to sing, we're going to dance, we're going to relax, and whatever it be. I know one of my twins has the same song on repeat sometimes that we'll listen to over and over again, but just to see the happiness and the peace and the relaxation that it gives them, the calmness that it gives them, it's worth it. And I suggest it for everybody, just having time out for yourself.
Well, that's good that you do that because that's one of those things that when a person is beginning to feel that stress and overwhelm, if you can find that one thing that brings you joy, it might just relieve some of that stress and overwhelm. And let's just hope that song is not Baby Shark do 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 Baby Shark do do.
That's one of them.
Because that'll bring all the stress and overwhelm right back. So, and while we're talking about that, do you remember or recall, one of the first signs that you were beginning to carry more than your share? I mean, did it show up in your body or your mood or your schedule or like what we're talking about, your sleep?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of it, and I think it becomes familiar with a lot of parents. I noticed not too much longer after having my twins. I think with I wouldn't necessarily say stress, but I would say the new responsibilities that came with it, and getting used to having two at the same time of the love and the comfort and the nurturing that came along with it. It's not something that you could just stop and put a pause on. It's something that was 24-hour constant. And so it was a matter of trying to figure out time for yourself somewhere in between that. And I think that's when things became a little bit heavier, a little bit more dense when it came to trying to figure out yourself in all of that. And so I think that probably was when it started to get a little bit more heavier at that time.
Wow. I just can't imagine the responsibility that one feels, that you feel when you have two at the same time from birth until what, how old are they now?
Two
Almost,
and a half, gonna
yeah,
be
two
three
and a half.
soon.
Because unless they're on magically the same schedule, then, it becomes almost 24/7 that if you're not dealing with one, you're dealing with the other. And then you have your other two that are also calling on you as well. So I can imagine how that feels. Now, how did you become, or in your opinion, how did you become the person that others could count on? I mean,
I
was it
think
expected or inherited or, you know?
I would have to say it wasn't expected. I think it was just something that was just kind of was just tagged on. I think just as the person I am, if you have a need or a concern, I've always been there to lend an ear, or if you want to talk, it's just something at my core that I feel good about just being there. And
Mhm.
so having these roles just kind of, I guess, came naturally, as people saw that through my personality and who I am.
Right, exactly. And, as you took on, 100% the, the responsibilities in terms of the care and, the household and all of that, um, I guess the question is, do you consider yourself one that delegates?
Oh, hands down.
What do you mean by that? Give us some examples.
So I went from being a relief supervisor at doing luxury sales for some of the top hotels on the strip. And that's where I had a team, and you would have to go and delegate different responsibilities to each person that's on your team. And I noticed that in the family kind of situation, you take some of those things that you've learned to apply it towards life. And so being able to delegate the different things throughout the household, managing the budgets, and
Yes.
making sure each kid has different things to do because they don't have the same interests, they don't have the same toys they want to play with, they have different things that they want to do. Being able to delegate that, or have my oldest, who's 17, be able to say, hey, would you be able to help out with setting out the paper and the paintbrushes for paint time and things like that. Being able to delegate to my son, hey, I noticed you had a great time with the Legos for the last couple hours. Now it's time to go ahead and take the bins, and why don't you organize it by your favorite color this time and different sizes and things like that. Go ahead and take care of that. Otherwise, it's going to be everywhere and it's going to be landmines of Legos all over the floor. Different things like that. And even with the twins, even though they're 2.5, being able to say, hey guys, we're done playing. Do you think you can help mommy out? And right now they're at the age where they're cleaning, like, yes, let's do it. You get to let me do the dishes?
Yeah,
Yes.
because it's
It's
fun.
like
Well,
different
that's
things
really
like that.
creative, because a lot of parents, and I just speak from what I observe, a lot of parents, they put the onus on technology, on screens. When they get overwhelmed, they say, okay, go get on your iPad, go get on your laptop, go do this because mommy needs a break. But what I can see, from what you've talked about, that you find different creative ways for them to, entertain themselves as well.
Exactly. Like when things get heavy and stressful, there's temper tantrums, things like that. It's like, okay, let's take a break. You know what? Let's go outside. In our backyard, we have a swing set. We have a mud kitchen, which comes in handy when they get stressed out.
Yeah.
They make a mess. They let out whatever tension they may have. Or we'll go to the front yard. We'll blow bubbles. We got a little pool, made our little own little wands, things like that. It's just a matter of redirecting whatever situation's going on and trying to turn it more into a positive thing where it's not so stressful for everybody.
Wow. Wow. So thinking about that, and obviously you're doing something right because you definitely don't look old enough to have a 17-year-old plus three other kids that are under what, 8, 9. So, have you ever had to admit that I cannot keep carrying this weight the same way? So, what helped you recognize, that something had to change, and what did you do?
So being a mom of four, there's a lot of responsibility that comes naturally and placed on you. So I noticed that things are starting to get piled up, and it's not necessarily, I think it has a lot to do with communication, but when you and your partner have different roles, and it's kind of, I kind of noticed that one, like my partner, for example, was taking on the role of going to work, and that became their role. But when my partner would come home, my husband would come home, he'd be like, okay, I had a long day, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to relax. And I think it took a lot of communication, because it was, okay, I know you had a long day, but my role being here of taking care of the kids, getting them clean, getting them fed, prepping meals, doing fun things for them to do, learning time, because I delegate. I also have one, my son, who's doing homeschool, so there's a lot of different
My goodness.
ask, and it just falls down. So I know a lot of parents feel like when the other person comes home, you're like, okay, give me a second, give me 5 minutes, it's to myself. And so I noticed that it took some communication, and it was just one of those things where I noticed that when those things didn't happen, when you don't get that moment to yourself, because you are putting in 24/7, with kids, that everything just started seeming to get heavy, and your mood kind of changes, and you kind of start snapping at things you wouldn't normally snap at. You're more tired because you're never getting that full break, that mental break that you kind of need, where
Right.
you can go to the car and listen to music, whatever it is that can give you some type of peace. And so I think I started noticing that when those things didn't happen, when I didn't feel like a partnership, where for example, my partner was be able to come home and just lay and relax and do whatever he would like to do. And when I didn't get that reciprocated, I felt the heaviness, the deepness, kind of just like, not necessarily a burden, but just something where you feel like you have to take a step back, because you see yourself snapping or not regulating yourself correctly, because you're still in, I wouldn't necessarily work mode, but you're just in mom mode, where it's just continuous, and you just need a moment to get back to Krystina, back to myself. Just even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, it helps. It does wonders.
So as we talk about what keeps you up at night, the things that you were just, speaking of, the fact that you often or sometimes feel overwhelmed because you didn't get that break, it seemed like it would be fairly easy, just fall asleep and stay asleep. So has any of this kept you up at night, or is it other things? I mean, let's get back to what keeps you up at night. I mean, does it? And then how do you control it?
I think a lot of what I guess would keep me up at night would be the thoughts of, okay, what if I did take a step back and I just went to my room, closed the door, and just went to sleep for however long that I needed. And what I think about is, okay, if I do that, are the kids going to get harmed? Is everything safe as it should be? Are they going to need me for something? What if something happens that's out of, my control? I'm not there to assess. I'm not there to fix. And I think a lot of that does stay on my mind, especially when you go to bed, because that's the only time you have to yourself, is once the kids are kind of sleeping, you get a chance to unwind, and then all of the thoughts keep flooding in. Did I do this right? Did I take care of this? Did I pay the bills? Did I make sure I have stuff ready for tomorrow? And so it all comes flooding in, and then you sit there and think, well, what if I just don't do anything? And then, of course, I'm pretty sure anybody can imagine the barrage of like everything that would come in, like the good, the bad, and most of it's kind of negative because your intrusive thoughts come in, and So
Wow.
it's a lot. So you just kind of try to take it piece by piece, and you try to weigh out the benefits and try to cast out the negative as much as possible, because it could
Wow.
get overwhelming if you don't.
Yep, absolutely. And, for our listeners, that is really great advice. For me, I do a little bit of coaching, lifestyle coaching. And what you've talked about are really those three basic things that, the stress, the anxiety, and sometimes the depression just settles in. And it's a lot of it is based upon the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And that's what really begins to keep your mind racing, even though your body is tired. So, do you have any um, strategies for just calming yourself to lead into, your nighttime rest?
I think, even though I actually did talk about this with my 17-year-old daughter just yesterday, because she's going through kind of her own things, and we joke around a lot. So I always say, let go and let God, and Jesus take the wheel. And she always brings up this skit, which she shouldn't be watching. There's a cartoon show where there's this lady driving on the freeway. She goes, oh, there's my exit. Good luck, everybody. And so she always relates that to whenever I say, let go and let God, she goes, yep, Jesus take the wheel. And then she always says, good luck, everybody. But it's kind of, you have to take that same kind of attitude, because I notice when I get all of those negative thoughts, and like in my head, I'm just like, it should be this way. It should be this way. It should be this way. Sometimes things are out of my control. And I think sometimes taking a step back and saying, this is out of my control. I can do what I can on my part. I can communicate different things. I can try to do different things. But at the end of the day, if I don't take a step back and breathe and try to assess maybe a different alternative, or just letting it be, is sometimes the only way that clarity will come at that point. And I think my daughter has kind of helped out with that, with, joking around, but she sees that sometimes if she just lets it go, that sometimes answers will come up. And when she thinks about it, prays about it, or however it is, just calm about it.
Exactly. Wow. And that's great advice. And typically, at this point of the show, I'm asking my guests, so what advice would you give? But you've just given just great advice. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit, because, I talk a lot about legacy and what a person is going to leave behind for their kids. And in your case, 4 kids, right? But I also talk about you have to create it today and not, think about, after you're gone. You have to create your legacy today. So when you think about your 17-year-old and, the rest of your kids, what do you see as your legacy?
My legacy is family. Honestly, that's to my core. My parents showed me so much on what I have to be and do as a parent, and being there for your children, listening, being open, giving them that safe place to be able to communicate, to come whenever you need something. That's the biggest thing. And it doesn't just stop at family, because you take that bond that you have with your family and you take that to everyday life. You take that to your friends, your coworkers, you take that to people that you meet. And my daughter even knows that communication's key. Honesty is key. As long as you're open and you show the person that you are, then things will gravitate towards you that's meant for you. And having my family, my kids know that we do everything together as a family. And we we go out, we do everything. We do family events. My children love to talk to their Nana and Bestafar and Nana and Tata, everybody. We make it a point to reach out because we're not all together. And if you don't take a step and communicate or reach out to your family, what else do you have? Your family's always going to be there for you. And having that connection, being able to know about each other's day, I want my kids to be able to pass that along as they get older, so they know they're never alone. They always will have somebody, whether it's aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, siblings. It's just to the core. It's just family is just what I grew up with, and it's what I'm going to continue, and hopefully my kids will continue on.
Absolutely. And I could tell that what you're saying is so heartfelt. And for all of our listeners out there, just remember family and how important family is. And when we think about, like, you know, the weight that we carry that sometimes keeps us up at night, the stress and the overwhelm and the responsibility, remember too your family. Maybe that's a time that you reach out, or write it down that you want to reach out to your family and express, so you're not keeping it inside as well. And so, Krystina, I really want to thank you for being on our show, because, and especially our first show for our third season, to talk about when our minds just refuse to rest. So, just to add, since this is the onset of our new season, and a quick reminder, because we've talked about some deep things here, that the stories and the views and opinions that we share on Breaking the Silence are intended for educational, inspirational reflection, and don't necessarily reflect the views of any of our related affiliates as well. So with that in mind, I just want to say to all of our listeners and to Krystina and all of my family, keep listening to what rises in the silence after midnight, and keep giving yourself permission to rest and keep breaking the silence. Until next time.
Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.